thanks for joining us, Stefan. And yeah, it's great to be able to hear a little bit about how Cargolux has implemented the shop control application. We've got a few questions that we'll go through, so let's get straight on with those. So can you start by telling us a little bit about your business case for implementing the shop control app and how you've seen it maximizing your operation?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me, Chris. So the shop control app is used in our shop environment. So we have in Cargolux. So we have 10 shops, 10 back shops, which are supporting the airline and the maintenance organization, and they have the mission to repair many 747 components for fleet. At the same time, they also support the hangar and the line operation directly. So that's what we have grown to in the last few years, is that we basically this year we are repairing about 10,000 components per year nowadays. It's a lot of components, and some of these components are urgent. Some of these components are required on AOG basis. There's also a lot of these components which are traveling through the different shops, and then you need to track that component and the progress of that component. So with the increase of our fleet and the increase in the numbers of components that we are repairing, we have seen it very clear that we need to have a system which gives us an overall priority, an overall progress tracking status on the parts that we are repairing, and that's what the shop control app is doing for us. You have to see where we are coming from is a situation where basically when a component was getting off wing, then and it needed a repair, we would just send it to the shop. So every component requiring repair would just get sent to the shop. So the shops used to get a lot of components. They have to figure out what is the priority of that component. They have to figure out what needs to be done on that component. This creates a large backlog of parts for them. And with a large backlog comes a lot of issues of space, of multitasking, of negotiating priorities with other elements of the organization, etc. And that had become a major problem for us. At the same time, when you have these 10,000 components, which each require sometimes very small action in different shops, it starts to be very difficult to know where you stand with all these components. So sure. Some time ago, we decided that we need to create a system, a process, let's say, which is controlling the inductions of our parts into the shops, into the shop system as a whole, into these 10 shops. We need to control the induction of parts. And once the part is induced into the system, we have to make sure that it has the right priority and that we can track it real time. That's basically what the shop control project was for us, and the shop control app is doing. It's giving us a way to take a decision when a part needs to be released to the shop for repair, when is it necessary, and when it has been released, how do we track in real time what is happening to that part? And that's extremely critical. And by doing this, you manage your parts, in process, you're reducing your turnaround time, you're able to take the right decisions and to repair the right part at the right time, basically. So that's where the added value is. Of course, the turnaround time is immediately linked to the number of parts you need to hold in your stock. So the best we are in turnaround time, the best we are supporting the airline. Yeah.
Brilliant. Very good. Thank you very much. So overall, how do you think that the maintenance digitization has impacted your profitability?
So what we are looking at in Cargolux is that we try to make it the best way possible for mechanics to focus on their core job, which is to maintain and to repair the airplanes. So we are trying to remove non-value added time away from the work of these mechanics and that's what digitalization is doing for us. It's simplifying our processes, and it is also bringing to the mechanics the right information at the right time in a real-time format, And so basically, we're able to cut down some processes which are cumbersome. We are cutting down, for example, whiteboards, which we used to have not too long ago in the different environments. They are replaced by screens, which are displaying real-time information. And what the digitization is doing for us it's also bringing a lot of aspects which were just not possible before. If I take an example on the task cards, we still have task cards today in paper, but it's going to be soon transferred to digital. When you stamp a task card, so when a mechanic is doing a task and signing off the task on your paper task card, this is a process which is intrinsically it's not controlled. So somebody may have to come and see this was the right mechanic with the right skill has been stamping that task, and he was authorized to do so. So there's a whole lot of manual process implied in the background of that manual stamping. With the digital world, now we are able to control that task card. So we issue that task card on the iPad, and only the mechanic with the right skill and with the skill which is currently current, let's say, so it's not expired, he will be able to sign that task card. So the system is doing some kind of will do for us an automated QA, let's say, which is replacing a very, very cumbersome manual process which is in place up to now. And basically it's error free. So we come to zero error because we never managed to get there with a paper process.
Very good. Yes, that's great. So what has been the response of your employee team to the introduction of this app and the adoption of new technology as part of your efforts to mobilize your maintenance operation?
Yeah. So it's been extremely good. And it's been extremely good, not only because our technicians, they see something nice coming or something looking fancy, but it's really because it's immediately making their life simpler. They do have access to real-time information. So that means that they don't have to go in the system and look for it or call somebody to look for it. So they're just there in front of them and it's updated every so and so minutes. This is creating for them as well data which is providing them an oversight of the situation of their shop or of their team. So once again, they don't have to go and look at all these components and let me check the status regularly on a weekly basis. What is the status of my component today? No, it's on the screen. It's right in front of me. It's always up to date. So I'm removing all that manual work of creating the status, which was the case up to now. What we have as well with these solutions is they provide good visuals. So if the status is bad, it's red. It's gonna show red as of the time we decided that we need to pay attention to it. So it provides easy visual management basically for everybody across the organization to see how we are doing. So from the technician to the vice president, you come to the shop. You see a screen with reds and you see, okay, that might be something that we need to look at today.
Can you describe some features they're using and how they aid your team members and the company?
Yeah, so this specifically the Shop Control app is now implemented in every one of our shops. So it's used on a daily basis. I'm going to show you the features that they are using a little bit in the screen. So it's a simple but effective system. It's also very easy to understand. So we just make a basic training, couple of hours. They said, look, you have this situation. You click there, you enter that information, and then it goes. It's quick. You don't have to print a task card. You don't have to print some paperwork, sign it, etc. It's just all traced in the system. It's efficient. It's lean, basically.
Very good. How has the dashboard high-level overview, such as the shop indicator detail window, helped with your managers following the KPIs?
This is extremely critical. It's very, very beneficial to have KPIs which are compiled in the live format like this, because we come from a situation where we manually compile our KPIs, maybe on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, So you are looking already at something which is expired. You are looking at what you have been doing in the last week or in the last months, and then you look at this and you see if you need to take corrective actions. Now it's live, it's in front of you, it's up to date at any time, and this is extremely valuable because then we can take the actions which are necessary at the earliest point of time. And for a shop environment, this is extremely critical because the issue of today is the stock shortage in terms of parts of tomorrow or the day after. So if you have a component which is dragging in the shop for a reason, you are waiting for something, and if this is not, let's say, escalated, and this component keeps on dragging or keeps on being delayed, then ultimately that will create a stock shortage. So when you react a few days in advance to the situation, then you are in a much better position than just being faced with the zero stock.
Very good. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. So did the end users find the training to be helpful and the product to be intuitive and easy to learn?
Yeah, definitely. The training was quite short. The user guides are also very easy to understand because basically I'm going to show you the screen in a minute. It's basically intuitive. It's state of the art of what you would expect from such a software nowadays, that it reacts. It has a modern feeling to it, and it's basically you get right to it. It's no questions asked. We have had very limited feedback or very limited questions back. It was just a good implementation.
That's great, thank you. So how would you describe the implementation project and support?
So the implementation, the project and support from Trax was great. First of all, what I really appreciated is that they were really open and interested to develop something new. And the shop control, so the shop control project that we had in Cargolux was an idea which was already a few years old. And we were more or less stuck with the development of the real-time software which was linked to that project, because it was a difficult tool to set up. And so Trax was really interested. They came into it. The developers, it was quite unbelievable how fast they were familiar with the shops, with our shop processes and all our shops are working and any aspect of the MRO environment. So it was just a pleasure to work with Trax on that and to progress. Let's say the huge added value of having an app developed by Trax is that they go in the database, in our database, and they pick up the information that is already there, and they just make a new tool out of it, So it is a huge advantage, because when you do something in the system at one location, then you find it back on the shop control. It's just all integrated, and that's what makes the added value of the shop control application.
So do you see opportunity for further process improvements?
Yes. There's so right now the shop control app is an application which is controlling the flow of work orders or repair orders in our shops. There's already a lot of ideas coming from the shops themselves. One of two greatest possibility for improvements is one, to include the support to the hangar or to the line, because we do repair components in the shop, but we also work on work orders or task cards or projects, let's say, which are directly linked to the airplanes we have in the hangar or the airplanes that we have on turnarounds on the line. So that would be a first potential improvement. A second improvement is to continue build on the shop control app and make the process in the shops fully digital. Because right now, let's say we are at a stage where the management of the shop work orders is digital, but the shop work order itself is still a paper package. The shop control app already has the prime features to make that package digital, and that would be one of the very interesting next improvements. Yes. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you. How has the COVID-19 crisis affected your organization, and how has this software helped you?
Specifically the start of the COVID crisis, because now we're getting accustomed to it, obviously. So specifically at the start of the COVID-19 crisis, so a year ago, it was a big shock for us, because in cargo operation, there was a dramatic increase of operations, because the cargo airplanes had to pick up the freight left by the passenger belly market, and also they had to pick up all the PPEs for the various countries, etc. So we had a dramatic increase of operation, and at the same time we had a dramatic change of working conditions in all our direct environments, because we were affected by quarantines. We were affected by leaves when people have to take care of their kids because the schools are closed, etc. So we had to really focus on that. So as in core, we had to really completely refocus ourselves on just operations, primary operations. We did not do, for let's say the first 6 months, we did not do any project development or nice to have extra things in our duties. We just purely focused on operation and try to get the airplanes flying. And in that context, when you have a software which is supporting you, which is freeing you from doing all this work of analysis, where is my part, what is the status of my part, this is invaluable, because you just get right to it, get to the point, and get your job done. That was clear.
Very good. Yeah, that's great.
All right, so what you see here is our shop control application. And what is specifically in front of you right now, this is what we call the backlog of parts. And when I mentioned that we are controlling nowadays the induction of parts into the shop, so we just not send everything to the shop because the shop is going to choke on that. We have a backlog area where the parts are coming and waiting for the right time to be released to the shops. It's a little bit like, and I've seen almost identical softwares for hospital emergency room management, where you come as a patient and you're going to be reviewed by a nurse, and she's going to classify you as a serious case or a normal case, etc. And accordingly to this, you're going to be moved to the doctor's office, etc. As opposed to so let's say the process we had a little bit before would have been like every patient just walks right through to the doctor's office. And obviously that doesn't work. The doctor needs to focus on his job and have the right patient at the right time. So what you see here is this backlog area where the parts are waiting to get a repair order. What we have done with TRAX there is very efficient because the parts are not classified by the time they came in or by the time they are waiting here. They are just classified by their priority, and that priority is compiled here. It's a calculation that we put together with TRAX, which is based on the utilization of that part, the amount of parts that we have currently in stock, and the amount of parts we have currently in repair, and whether these parts are going to make it or not, or whether they're going to have to be on hold for a reason. So based on that, the system is constantly calculating what is the next part that you should put into the shop from top to bottom. So the page is quite intuitive. You see your part. You see where do you currently stand with your stock. So you see these parts in red, they are currently standing at 0 stock. So we know we have an immediate problem with these parts. If the parts are in stock, we are able to immediately see where they are and what are the quantities. This is a very easy way to get information. And then you are able to see what is happening for the parts which are currently in repair. Are they on hold? Do I have some open requirement for that part that you can see here? So do I have an open requirement? So did somebody order that part, and for when does he need that part? This is what this page is showing. So it's a very useful tool for the shop control planner. So that's what the team we are putting in place right now. We'll have a shop control center with shop control planners in there, and the shop control planner use that list and say, look, my shop can take one more part, and that's the right part to send them right now. We included as well, just as a little detail, we included as well, I have to see that's my test. I'm going to move to test. So we included as well some kind of a manual aspect to it. So if the planner needs to make a manual interaction and he finds that a part which is not presented to him as high priority is actually a high priority part for, this happens a lot. So somebody comes from planning and say, hey, watch out, I need that part for a certain check, So he's going to be able to go there and move that part to the fast lane, put a note to it. You see that my planners already did that part required for Friday. So that's going to be an immediate reminder for the planner that this is actually the next part I need to send to the shop. Yeah. When the part is sent to the shop, then we are moving to the other tab of the application, which is the work list. So here we are looking at the due list, or let's say the work list of the shop, or what is currently should be worked by the shop at the right moment. What is very interesting there is that we designed with TRAX what we call the buffer consumption here, which is a percentage incrementing with the time that the part is spending in the shop. And it's telling us, let's say it's basically the percentage of time it's the amount of time the part has spent in the shop compared to the TAT that you want to have. So it's based on your TAT, and based on your due date, you see the percentage are increasing. Now you see that it is red and it is very high percentage. Why? Because we are in the test database and the data gets overdue there. But so basically when the part is, let me go back to the test database and you will see it better, to the production database, sorry. So when the part is just released into the shop, and let's say you have 15 days turnaround time and you are on the first day of that TAT, then your part is going to be displaying green. Sorry, your part is going to be displaying green. And as the part is progressing along in the shop, it's going to move to yellow, finally to red. And if it's overdue, it's going to be staying red. And that provides what we discussed at the beginning, the uniform priority system. Everybody has the same priority across all the organization. That part is at so many % of buffer consumption, and that defines that priority. So when that part is moving to another shop, it will go within the list of that shop, and the shop will have to do that part according to the global priority level, which was a huge problem for us in the past because we did not have a global priority. So basically it was down to all individual shops to negotiate priorities. You know how it goes. So you are the wheel and brake shop. You go to the paint shop and can you do a couple of parts for me today? But then the sheet metal shop lead is doing the same. And then you have these discussions which are never finishing, which are taking a lot of time. And this is all over with that system because we assign a global priority to each of the parts, and it's for everybody the same, and it's controlled by our shop control center. I mentioned we have a lot of AOG parts, so we have a specific category for that. That's what you see on the first line here. So when the part is AOG, it's displaying full red and it's showing up in front for everybody. So that's a clear sign that everybody needs to drop the tools and get on that part because this part is immediately required to get an airplane back to the air, and this is going to be displayed in front for everybody. And you see this page, which is going to be displayed in screens in the shops pretty soon here in Cargolux. So we're gonna have big screens with that page on. So if you get an AOG part, even before the part is coming physically to your shop, you have something that you need to work on a very urgent basis. I came a little bit ahead of myself here. So on that work list, then you see your part, you see the specifics of the work order, you see all the specifics of that part, and then you are able to see what is the priority of that part. When was that part inducted? When is that part required? And what's the remaining duration and what's the buffer consumption? So for the shops, the life has become really easy. They just have to go from the first line to the second line all the time. What it provides to us as well, this buffer consumption. So the average of this buffer consumption is shown on the KPIs on the right there, which I'm gonna move to that in a second. So. And when we look at the overall buffer consumption in the shop, this is telling us how is the shop currently the current health status of the shop. Okay, so if our shop is green, that probably tells me that the shop could do a little more parts now. If the shop is yellow, it's the average condition. That should be the normal, let's say, the cruise speed of the shop. If the shop is in the red, and right now it is because you see it's the test database and everything is overdue. But if the shop is in the red, that tells me that the shop is not going to deliver all the parts on time. So that's a big sign for management. So management is basically looking at the buffer consumption and can manage the shop from day to day accordingly to that. If the buffer consumption is increasing, then that tells me that something is not delivering as quick as expected in that shop. And that is a very simple indicator, which is basically free from any other data. We don't need to put man hours into that. We don't need to put fancy data into that. It's just a due date, a consumption of that due date, and we see how that shop is doing. I move back to the production database in order to show you the shop indicators. So these shop indicators on the right are the critical indicators we figured for our own operation. Our mission at Cargolux, so we are integrated to the airline. So our mission is to make sure that we fly our planes as much as possible and as safe as possible. So we need to have the parts returning to stock as soon as possible as well. So these are the KPIs we chose. So you see the buffer consumption, the on-time delivery, is the shop being able to deliver on time what was requested at the beginning? What is the turnaround time of the shop? What is the throughput of the shop? So is the shop keeping on releasing parts into the system? And all these KPIs, they are compiled on the last 7 rolling days. Okay, so it's very interactive. As soon as you have a few days where you, let's say I'm not aware of it, and one of my shop has his main machine which is broken down and no parts get released, immediately it will start showing on the KPIs. I don't even need to, let's say obviously we will gonna be aware of the breakdown, but even if the shop lead would not make us aware of the breakdown, we'll immediately gonna be able to identify that one shop has a problem. And then we have an overview on what parts are in the backlog, what parts are work in progress, and what parts are on hold. And we can review this amount of parts and see if it's getting out of control.
And the arrows, the color of the arrows, that makes a difference? Or?
Then again, I'm looking at my pneumatic shop right now, which is, I know this shop has a surge of workloads, and that is shown by the KPIs, that you see that the parts which are in the backlog, the parts which are in work in progress, and the parts which are on hold are all increasing. Okay. And to an extent that we define this as a red. If it would stay stable, I think it would be like an horizontal arrow, and if it's going down in the right direction, then it will be green. Now, this is the main page which the shops are using. There's a couple of great features to the page. Let me see, and I need to move back to test to do that. So there's a couple of great features to the page. Sorry, very easy to use for the shops. And one of these features is to move parts around the organization. So we come from a system where we took a part, we took the paperwork, and we bring it to the next shop. And then pretty soon, a week later, you have to say, hey, where's that part? Is the shop delayed, the other shop, or let me check with them, So it's quite intensive in order to keep track of these parts. So now what we designed very simply with Trax is you just click on the part, you select that work order, and you click move to site there right at the bottom, and you're going to select which shop are you sending that part to, and that's it. The part is disappearing from your own work list, and it's going to be appearing on the work list of the shop which is at the destination, and it's going to be appearing according to the priority list which we described, the priority level which we described before. So it's very powerful. The big users of this are Entity Shop and our Paint Shop. So our non-destructive inspection shop and our paint shop, these shops don't do parts on their own. They don't have their own capability list, so they don't repair parts themselves, but they do a lot of work for the other shops. So they paint parts for the other shops, they inspect parts for the other shops. So basically, this priority list for them is invaluable because they just keep on getting parts from all sides, and instead of constantly reviewing what is the next priority, then it's obviously in front of them. When we move a part to another shop, when we click that move to site button, we added a nice functionality that you go into the travelers tab. So if I'm right now the pneumatic shop, and you see I move 2 parts, I move one part to this site and one part to this site, then I can immediately see these parts in these travelers. So I know that I'm responsible for these parts, but I send these parts to these shops. I have a view on that. Now, obviously, not all parts are just a straight fix. There's a lot of parts nowadays in the MRO world that you are stuck because you need engineering repair for it. It takes a little bit of time, or you need spare parts, and that spare part is not found in the market, or you have to wait for a lead time to get that spare part. Or you're waiting for the customer, let's say, you're waiting for the customer, and the customer has to give you an approval for the quote. And we did not want to keep these parts in the work list because the shop, at that stage, when the shop is waiting for an external stakeholder, the shop is not effectively doing anything to that part. So when this is happening, we have another process in place that, again, we click that part, we select that part, and we're going to hold that work order. We all that work order, for example, that we are waiting for parts or tools. So there's a few reasons that you can enter. And when you do this, the part is moving away from your work list, from the shop work list, and it's going to be visible in the tab which is called on hold, where you have the parts which are, let's say, stuck for an external reason. So, and then you're going to be able to have an overview of these parts as well. Okay, so back again to your list of parts, where you can see your part number, you can see your work order, you can see the description of your part number and your work order, and then you see what is the reason for that part to be stuck, what's been the time since when it was blocked, because that's useful for me as a manager, because if a part is blocked for 1 year, I'm going to say, look, at some point we have to decide something. Maybe that part is BER, maybe that part needs to be replaced by a new part. So we see the incremental amount of time for that part to be on hold. If we are waiting on material, we immediately get that material information from the page as well. So it's not populated, but you see that small parts button. If you would be waiting for material, you would get real-time information. What is it you need and when is it coming? And you can basically manage your status, enter a note in order to retrieve yourself later on with your amount of parts. So these two basically very, very simple processes of moving parts to another site and putting a part on hold when you really cannot work on it anymore is very beneficial. Very simple processes, very beneficial for the organization because they add so much clarity to the whole operation. I don't remember if I stated at the beginning, we do 10,000 parts per year. It's increasing. So that means that every day 40 parts are getting released, This means that if at the point we accepted all the work orders and all parts were getting immediately to the shops, we had more than 1,000 live work orders. So you have more than 1,000 work orders which are always open, which you need to manage. And with this process, we are able to basically make triage, let's say, of the parts at the beginning, the induction of the parts. So we filter that at the beginning. We have in the work list only what you can work with the right priority. You are putting on all the parts which you cannot work anymore on, and you are managing these parts in a separate workflow. And basically all of these processes, they reduce the work-in process in the shop, and that's the critical thing. The more you reduce the work-in process, the more you make the life simple for the shops and for the people who are actually working on the parts. And that's the name of the game. That's what we are achieving there. Yeah.
That's great. Perfect. So Stefan, thanks for taking the time to show us the screens. That's really interesting. It's great to be able to see how the information is being used to help your organization to improve themselves. Would you like to share any additional thoughts?
I would just like to say a big thank you to Drax. They took on the challenge of designing something new. When we came with the idea, when we came with the specifications, this was something which was a new project inside Cargolux. It was not clear whether we would succeed and bring that application through and something that works. So that was a lot of work put there from all sides. And I really am grateful for that because we have a great tool that we're going to be able to use in the future, and we're going to be able to further develop that tool. Yeah.
That's great. Well, Stefan, we'd like to thank you for taking the time to share Cargolux success with us.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Chris.